Hello everyone, I am the Reasoning Leo and welcome to my channel. So what is this channel? Well, basically we will be discussing topics. Now, the most popular topics I'm sure will be religion, social problems, and gaming. But before we go to that, there are a few things I'd like to warn you about. As some of you may have noticed, I am not a native English speaker. English is not my first language, so you should expect that perhaps sometimes I may confuse words or even mispronounce them. For that, I apologize. Secondly, my filter will not be on, which means that I will speak my mind openly, clearly, and I will say what I think about a topic, but obviously my thoughts on the topic will be reinforced with some sort of evidence. So, for example, why I think this is the way it is. But basically, that's about it. We will be discussing topics that you choose if it comes to that. Gladly address a topic that a listener might want to discuss. But let's go to the first topic of this channel: religion. Yep, went for the big one. So, why religion? Well, first of all, because it's the 21st century. And in the 21st century, the majority of the human population is still very religious. Now, we first have to describe what religious is. Is it the people blowing themselves up, crashing into buildings? Is it the man sitting at home giving a prayer before eating a meal or going to bed? Is it the man that does none of the above and just goes to church on Sundays? What does it mean to be religious? Well, that's the thing, you see. There are so many definitions of what religious is. Now, religious basically means that you believe in a deity. You can be either monotheistic, polytheistic. India is a polytheistic country, and they're not doing much better than the monotheists either. They are just as just as big as bigots when it comes to, for example, gay marriage or gay relationships. I can't quite remember. It was sort of like made into a joke in a sort of a meme fashion. That you get a minimum amount of 7 years in prison. We're talking about India, just to clarify that. 7 years in prison for rape, but you get a life sentence for engaging in a gay relationship. I think to most reasonable people this would be a little odd. Wouldn't you agree? But anyway, let's address the monotheistic religions first. So, what is wrong with Christianity? Well, Christianity is just as bad as any other religion. Now, its holy book, the Bible, is made in two parts, the Old and the New Testament. The Old Testament is basically a plethora of God's wrath. Right? He's killing left, right, center. Basically, it is an appalling piece of literature that should have been put off the shelves at about the 18th, maybe 19th century. I think we should have put it down about there, but no, still exists, and it is still raising children to be followers of Christ in either a good or a bad fashion. Now, there are good religious people. I'm not saying that all religious people are the same. Okay, I don't stereotype people. Okay, there are good religious people. I have some very good friends that are religious, some that used to be religious and are now agnostic. No, I had nothing to do with that. And they are absolutely heartwarming people that never discuss their religion outside their family or their church. And that, for me, right there is the prime example of how religion should be: private, personal, kept within the circle of people that believe in this. That doesn't mean that they should be censored. I'm just saying that you cannot push your religion on others when you clearly see that they want nothing to do with your religion. Okay? Now, obviously, extremes are more interesting and they're more easily described, so let's start with a Christian extreme. The Christian extreme would be, in America, the Westboro Baptist Church. Now, the Westboro Baptist Church believes that because the because the American population now is starting to accept gay marriage, gay relationships, that God has abandoned them. Not only that God will punish them and is punishing them, and that is a good thing. Basically, they are praying for Armageddon to come on down and burn all the non-believers off the face of the earth. Basically throw them into eternal hellfire, suffering, torture, the good stuff. Now, while not being as bad as Muslim extremists, they don't kill people. You have to understand that they don't kill people. They are, when it comes to their hate speeches, they are actually worse. Okay, Muslims say that we kill you because of this and this. They don't go out all the time with signs. They just go out to certain events, one might say. A good example is the cartoons of Muhammad that they didn't agree with. But yeah, when it comes to a competition of who does the best hate speech, Christianity wins, because we do have to allow them to compensate, as it were, for their lack of physical violence, and allow them to have a bit more verbal freedoms. But is that a good thing? Obviously not. It is still violence, it is still awful, it is still disgusting, and it still is completely and utterly unacceptable in the 21st century. But let's not single out the Westboro Baptist Church. Let's look at, for example, the previous Pope. There's a good one, speaking about sexuality. So, what could a Pope say about that, you might think? Well, he said that abstinence is the only way to prevent getting AIDS, which we all know is not true. Condoms are a very good way to prevent AIDS from spreading. Now, he could have simply said, well, we would like you to consider abstinence before condoms, but condoms don't hurt either. Okay, but we prefer abstinence first. That would be a reasonable statement, one might think. But no, the church is not happy with that. So God's messenger on earth, his disciple, as it were, would like to extend on that and say that condoms are actually the cause of AIDS, that condoms help spread AIDS. He said that to the people of Africa, the most AIDS-ridden continent on our planet, where people suffer from AIDS, die from AIDS every minute of every day throughout the year. Okay? When someone says, well, religion doesn't do any actual harm, I'm sorry. If it were up to me, the previous Pope would be put on trial for murder. But that, of course, would only exist in a perfect world, and in a perfect world, we do not live. And why stop there? Let's go to a bit more of a modern country, for example. Let's go back to the United States, where 50%, well, to be honest, it's 48 to 50 depending on the polling year, but let's just say 50 for the sake of argument. 50% of the population is religious to a certain extreme, okay? They denounce evolution. They denounce the fact that the universe is billions of years old. By their line of thinking, we have existed for about 6,000 years, and matter, everything you see around us that came before us, existed for about 10,000 years. Not only that, all of this was done in literally 6 days. Well, they have their right to believe that. They do not have their right to push these ideas on the rest of US citizenry, basically trying to force these ideas into their schooling system, trying to force their devotion of God into their political system. You have to understand, for those people listening that aren't living in the United States, you cannot attain any higher office in the United States government without being openly religious. There has been no atheist president, and there probably won't be for, in my opinion, at least another 50 years, because progress, as we know, is slow, especially when it comes to social reforms. And when I say social reforms, I obviously mean that it comes to the point where people can say, okay, our religion no longer matters in our politics. Now, a very famous president, I'm not sure if you've heard of him. His name was Kennedy. When asked about his religion, he said specifically that his religion has absolutely nothing to do with his policies, and that his religion should never be brought up. Now, that is how a politician should be. And I'm talking to you people in the United States now. This is how politicians should be. My religion has nothing to do with it. He mentioned it only in passing, and only, well, basically when asked about it, he usually said he doesn't want to talk about it, or that it doesn't matter. Okay? And that's basically the ideal world. If you have to have a religious leader, which is no problem with that, he must be a rational thinker. But let's move from Christianity, let's go to the other end of the pool, to the Muslim extremists. Now, these we have sadly quite a few examples of. 9/11, the underground bombings in London, Spain, most recently, for example, the bus bombing in Russia, and the 2010 and 11 bombings in Russia, which together took almost 100 lives and injured several hundred other people. Now, how would someone allow themselves to strap a bomb to their chest, or strap a bomb to a civilian target like a bus, and then blow it up while thinking that he is doing a good job, and not only a good job, that he will be rewarded for it when he dies? Well, I'm very sorry to say, but there is only one answer: religion, or better yet, religious indoctrination. For example, I have a very good citation here from the Quran, so that's Quran 4:74. Let those fight in the way of Allah who sell the life of this world for the other, whose fight in the way of Allah, be he slain or be he victorious, on him we shall bestow a vast reward. That is in the Quran. Like I said, 474, you can look it up. Now, what does this mean? Well, this gives a license to people that want to kill in the name of their God. And then you'll be thinking, well, okay, so now we've figured out that it licenses violence, but surely it doesn't propagate it. Well, let's look at Quran 495. Not equal are those believers who sit and receive no hurt, and those who strive and fight in the cause of Allah with their goods and their persons. Allah hath granted a great higher to those who strive and fight with their goods and persons than to those who sit. Unto all hath Allah promised good, but those who strive and fight have distinguished above those who sit by a special reward. Translated, everyone is going to the Muslim version of heaven if they follow Allah, but those who fight are gonna get a really good time once they die. Propagating violence, very clear. You can't translate this in any other way. So far we've established that the Quran encourages martyrdom, that it gives a better reward to those that martyr themselves than to those who do not and are simple people of faith. But let's go a step further. We do have to acknowledge that, just like Christianity, that Muslims aren't exactly peaceful. Now here's a good one. Quran 2, 191, 193. I will be adding all of this, obviously, to the description of the video. So let's read this one. And kill them wherever you find them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. And al-fitna is worse than killing, al-fitna being disbelief. But if they desist, then lo, Allah is forgiving and merciful, and fight them until there is no more fitna, which is disbelief, like I said, or worshipping of others along with Allah. And worshipping is for Allah alone. But if they cease, let there be no transgression except against al-zalimun, the polytheists and the wrongdoers, etc. So basically, this is one of those verses in the Quran where the Muslims will usually say, well, this is for defensive means. Basically, when they get attacked, they are allowed to defend themselves this violently. Well, in historical context, that is not right, because this passage does not propagate defensive warfare, since at the time Muhammad and his Muslims had just relocated to Medina and were not under attack by the Meccan adversaries there. So, in fact, this verse actually urges them to have offensive warfare and drive the Meccans out of their own city, which historically they actually did later on. Yeah, so pretty much a hateful book, just like the Bible. So what does this tell us? That all religion is evil? Yes and no. Religion is contradictory. Except obviously, well, when I say that the Bible is contradictory, I can't say about the Quran because it's pretty even throughout. But the Bible, they have the Old and New Testament. Now the Old Testament is all about strict rules about how you can get killed or maimed as a form of punishment for the slightest offenses. And the New Testament is, granted, slightly more lenient but no less bloody. But also the New Testament should be the abolishment of all the other all the old rules. That is why Jesus, that's part of why Jesus came to earth, so that the New Testament will now be law for Christians, because the Old Testament is more akin to Judaism now. But still, that does not excuse one or the other. So, what can we take out of all this? Well, it's simple. Religious extremism exists because we allow it. We allow it to not only exist but to prosper, because our modern society is all about understanding and compassion. Now, those that do not believe have to understand that other people have a certain religion and that we should not encroach on it or diminish it. And I believe the time for this blind understanding is over. Religious extremism exists because it is supported, consciously or subconsciously. What I mean by that is that even if you are a peaceful man of religion, if you just pray and hold to your religious tenets at home or at your church or your mosque or your synagogue, you are still supporting it. You are still propping up the religion that allows these things to happen. I'm not calling you evil if you are a peaceful religious person. I'm just asking you to consider if your religion is worth keeping up. Because while I'm sure there are a lot of good religious people, there are sadly bad examples, and those bad examples aren't just verbal, they are physical and they are deadly. A good example, I'm not sure where I heard this, but it was a good example. Bear with me a little, this is a bit philosophical. Does the snowflake feel responsible for the avalanche? Now, someone might laugh at this thing. What the hell does this have to do with anything? Well, imagine yourself, the snowflake, being a peaceful religious person. Lots of snowflakes, snow, make quite a wide, fresh layer. And what happens? Well, when that gets loose, it turns into an avalanche. How does it get loose? Well, it gets loose either under its own weight, or someone loosens it. Usually a stupid skier. But the point is that while you may not feel responsible, and you are not, by you yourself as a single entity, not responsible for any of this, as a whole, we are all responsible. Note, I said we, not you. We are all responsible. And I think it's high time that this is put on the we do not accept this list. And that's basically it. There is nothing else you can do except put your foot down and say enough is enough. We've killed each other for the better part of 2014 years. Let's stop. Anyway, that's my first video. It's been a pretty long one. I hope I didn't bore any of you, but this is the kind of topics that I think could spark a good conversation. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I am the Reasoning Leo, and if you like this channel, please subscribe and spread the word. See ya.